Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of Travel Feels, and today we're going to talk about photography. Now, when I started out filmmaking, I started actually doing photography and filmmaking at the same time. But pretty quickly I realized that I actually don't like photography as much as I like filmmaking, so I kind of started putting all my effort into filmmaking and just watching tutorials and learning everything I can about filmmaking, and photography kind of got forgotten about. The only photography that I would really do is just on my iPhone, that's it. I would just take iPhone photos and post those on Instagram. I literally did not take any photos with my other cameras. But more recently, because of things like YouTube and Instagram, I've actually been doing more photography lately than I have been in the past, and actually using real cameras, not just iPhones, to take photos. It's nice to do something different. It's kind of like a hobby to me right now, and it's just a lot of fun doing it when there's no expectations really from me. But there's also a couple of really good reasons why every single filmmaker should be doing photography. And I've been reminded of these reasons lately just doing photography. First off, for a filmmaker, photography really helps with composition. There's only one frame in photography, that's it. There's no fancy gimmicks. You can't do any transitions or any cool movements to hide the fact that your framing and composition actually aren't that good. It's just that one frame, that's all you're looking at, so you really have to think about everything that's going on inside of that picture, which in turn makes you a better filmmaker. You can use a lot of those techniques then in your filmmaking process. And actually a lot of the top filmmakers, what they'll do is they'll look at photographers' work, all kinds of photographers, and then they'll emulate those styles or take some ideas from those photographers. Because photographers really have an eye to just capture that one moment perfectly, telling so much story through different things inside of that one frame. The next reason you should be doing photography is that you're gonna need photos, whether it's for YouTube thumbnails or for Instagram or Vimeo or Twitter or whatever you're using, you're gonna need photos. Those photos can be used to promote yourself, but also really practically, you're gonna need them for your YouTube thumbnails if you're doing YouTube like I am. I'm constantly trying to find what the best thumbnail would be for that video, and that's causing me to think about photography more. Not only am I just doing video during the shoot, but I'm also thinking about that perfect photo for the thumbnail for that video. So sooner or later, you're gonna need some photos, and remember also to get photos of yourself. We did a little shoot with Peter the other week, and it's really nice having those photos of yourself so you can use those also to promote yourself, whether it's on your website or on Instagram or whatever you're using. It really helps to have some really cool photos of yourself. So get one of your good photographer friends, go out on a shoot or something, make it natural, and get some really cool shots of yourself. And lastly, it's another skill that you can add to your skill set. The more skills you have, the more work you're gonna get. Especially starting out, you can't be too picky about what kind of work you're getting. So having photography, it gives you one more outlet to get some more jobs and get paid for doing what you love. Or just use photography to pay the bills and do whatever else you like doing. So being a photographer and not just a filmmaker opens this whole other world of possibilities, whether it's to get paid or more gigs or whatever it is. Alright, so we know how important photography is to filmmakers, but how can we get better at photography? Let's go through some things that you can do right now that'll make you a much better photographer. And some of these are pretty basic, but I always say it's really good to get a refresher, just to get that reminder of those things that you should be doing, and if you are already doing those things, it's a nice confirmation that, yeah, I'm doing the right things and I've learned a lot. Number one, I always tell people who want to start photography to shoot in manual. This is super important. If you really want to understand photography and how it works, you need to shoot in manual. And the reason for this is that you figure out what each of the settings actually does. If you're shooting in auto, let's say, you're never gonna know what the different settings do, and then you can't use those different settings. But if you're shooting in manual, you're gonna figure out, okay, what does the shutter speed do? Or what happens if I change the aperture? And then you can use those tools to accomplish what you want creatively. For example, if you want that nice bokeh blur background, shallow depth of field, if you shoot in manual, you're gonna figure out really quickly how to get those shots. So shoot in manual, start doing it right now. It's gonna make you a way better photographer. It takes a little bit of time to get used to it, but once you get used to it, you don't even have to think about the settings, you just do it automatically, boom, you're ready to go. Number two, you need to shoot in RAW. So the difference between RAW and JPEG can be a little bit confusing to some people. But JPEG is basically like taking a photograph with already a preset baked in. It's kind of like you're taking a photo with an Instagram filter already on when you're taking that photo, and you don't have that original image at all. You only have the one with the filter on it. That's kind of what a JPEG is. You're baking on this look, contrast, saturation, you're putting it already on there, and you can change it in post a little bit, but not nearly as much as you can in RAW, and you're gonna run into some different problems if you change it too much. So shooting in RAW gives you the possibility to just change everything in post afterwards. You're gonna have way better dynamic range, so you can bring back the highlights or bring up some of the shadows. You can change the white balance all you want without ruining the photo at all. So RAW is super important. It saves all that information so that you can change it however you want in post. Shoot in RAW. Number 3, get a fast lens. This is really important. And what I mean by a fast lens is a lens that has a large aperture. So I would say f2.8 or anything below that. So like a 1.8, 1.4, 1.2, but you need at least one lens that's f2.8 or better. Having a fast lens means you're gonna get that nice shallow depth of field, that nice background blur, that bokeh that everybody wants. And that's really the big difference between something like taking a photo on your iPhone. When you buy a DSLR, for example, a Canon 80D or a 5D or something like that, the biggest difference is that you can put amazing lenses on there and get some really cool looks with those lenses. You cannot replicate that same look with an iPhone. And you really don't need to spend a lot of money on this either. For example, you could just buy a really cheap 50mm 1.8, and that's gonna get you really nice shallow depth of field. Not to mention, having a fast lens means that you can get more light into your sensor, which means you can film better in low light conditions. So get yourself a fast lens. Number 4, focus on the lighting. Lighting is so important. More important than the camera that you're shooting on is the lighting. If the lighting sucks, it doesn't matter how good your camera is, the photo is not gonna be very good. A lot of us are shooting in natural light, so you really want to make sure that you're using the available light properly. And the best way to do this is to just shoot at either sunrise or sunset. You're always going to get amazing photos during those times. And if you just can't shoot at sunrise or sunset, then make sure to use some different tricks to use the light properly. For example, with a really harsh light like the sun midday, you want to use that as a backlight as much as possible. Don't shine it in their face because it's going to cause really harsh, weird shadows. Also, you can use that same sun, for example, with a reflector, or even if there's a white wall, the sun bounces into the white wall, it's gonna light up your face and it's gonna look really good. So use those little tips and techniques. Another thing you can do during midday when the light's not so good is to go into shade. That's really gonna help you get some really nice soft lighting. So make sure you're using light correctly. Take the time to learn about light and start looking at light, trying to figure out how it works and how to use it. So focus on lighting. And number 5, use a preset in your post-processing. It helps so much to use a cool preset on your photos. It just really makes your photos pop if you're using the right presets. Now for me, I'm a Lightroom user. I think it's by far the best photo editing tool there is. I really like it. It's really easy, nice and quick, and there's a lot of things that you can do with it. It's a really powerful program, but the fact that it's just so easy and quick to use is why I really like it. So once I've taken my raw photo, I bring it into Lightroom and I just add a preset, and then I do some tweaks, whether it's white balance or changing up some of the lighting and contrast and choosing some different areas to kind of make them pop or dull them down depending on what element it is. But the preset is really where the bulk of the look comes from. Everything else is just small tweaks. And here I'm using the TF Lightroom presets. I launched them last week. If you haven't already checked them out, make sure to check the link in the description. And I really like these presets. I worked really hard on these with my brother. He's a photographer and he really knows what he's doing in Lightroom. And we kind of worked together to develop these really cool looks, these kind of cinematic looks for your photos. I think they work really well. They're so easy to install and to use. I really highly recommend using presets, especially in Lightroom. If you want to be serious about photography, I highly recommend investing in Lightroom. Even though it is a bit pricey, it's definitely worth it. You won't regret it. All right, there we go. 5 tips on making you a better photographer. I hope you learned something through these little tips. And I'm not sure, I don't usually do photography tutorials, but maybe I'll do a couple more, maybe on the color grading, color correction process of photography. I think that's really important and it really helps to make your photos stand out. Make sure to check out the Lightroom presets down below, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and guys, enjoy the filmmaking process and go get some of those travel feels.